everyone, I'm Jeff McErlain, and today I want to talk about things to look for when you're purchasing a guitar. Before we get going, please hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps me out quite a bit. Also the notification bell. And if you like my playing, please check out JM Guitar Lessons, where I have all sorts of cool background tracks, master classes, and courses. Things like play in the style of David Gilmour, play in the style of Peter Green, improve your blues courses, and all sorts of things like that. So please go over and check that out. There are many things to look for when purchasing a new guitar. I think one of the main things, though, is does that guitar get your eye? Like sometimes, like this guitar, when I saw it in a store, I was immediately like, what is that guitar? And sometimes guitars really grab you. And that's really, really important because that's the thing that's going to always make you want to pick up that guitar and play it. There's a level of excitement that comes with a guitar. And if you get a really great guitar, there's lots of music to be found in it. I find I've got a number of guitars, and people say, oh, you only need one. Yeah, sometimes that's true, I guess, but for me it's not. Sometimes like my Les Paul makes me feel like I'm playing a certain way. Certain songs as a professional require that I have different kind of guitars, like Gibsons and Les Pauls and the variations of those, because professionally I do need those for my job. But also sometimes when I pick up a Les Paul, it makes me play very differently than when I'm playing a Stratocaster, and this two-humbucker Stratocaster makes me play differently and sound differently than a regular Stratocaster. So all these things really come into place. The first thing is, does the guitar get you excited? Okay, so once you see that guitar in the wall and you're like, man, I want to check out that guitar. The first thing I do before I even plug the guitar in is I do this. I pluck my high E string, and if I can feel the guitar vibrating in the body, and the B string, if I can feel it, if I feel the guitar vibrating, I hold my hand here, down by the bottom of the guitar, or the neck, or the horn right here, and just, if I can hear that guitar ringing out, and if I can feel it vibrating, that's always a good sign. I really look for that. That's the first thing I do. Sometimes if the guitar is hanging up on a shelf, I just go like that, and if it doesn't do anything, I just move on to the next guitar. A lot of people will say that the wood has nothing to do with the sonic qualities of an electric guitar, that's all about the pickups.
I don't think anybody's going to agree with you about this.
That has not been the case for me in any situation. If the guitar has no resonant qualities, you just strum it, it's kind of like dead as a doornail, I move on immediately. So once I've taken the guitar off the rack and strummed it and gone, okay, this is pretty loud and nice and resonant, I can feel it vibrating against my body, kind of like a tuning fork. All my guitars do that. It's the thing I look for first. Second is really some kind of technical stuff. Is the guitar put together well? One thing especially that is a real giveaway, and I've seen this on cheaper guitars, or just sometimes a guitar that kind of snuck through, is if the bridge isn't actually put in the right spot. And you might think, well, that's weird. I had a Strat years ago, and the bridge was just a little bit too far towards the ground, and all the strings were kind of off like that. The neck was in the pocket correctly, but the bridge was in the wrong spot. And it's something I couldn't really fix. Now, Stratocasters, especially old ones, you have some play. If you have the 3-bolt neck that you can move the neck around a little bit. If you're buying a guitar with a 3-bolt neck, those are things that you should consider. But things you should look for are the strings hanging off the side of the guitar, or things uneven looking. Everything should look very well centered. Things that are really important too, is the guitar ergonomically comfortable for me as a player? I grew up playing Stratocasters. I love playing Strats. To me, they're the most comfortable guitar to sit down with. When I started playing Les Pauls, they felt very different because they sit further over here. So the 12th fret on a Les Paul is kind of here on my body, and a Strat, it's over more here. When I first got an SG, it felt very weird because everything is pushed that way a little bit more. Firebirds are the same way. So if this is going to be one of your main guitars, that is something to really consider, because that will really have an effect on how much you want to play that guitar. Does it fit you ergonomically really well? Perfect example of guitars that I love, but I don't really buy one, is a Flying V. They're awesome, but I think they're only comfortable if you're standing up, and they look great. And I love Michael Schenker, my favorite guitar players, but when you watch him playing it sitting down, there's a certain way you have to hold a Flying V, and I don't want to do that. So those are some things that you really want to consider when you're looking at the guitar. Is it comfortable on your body for you to play? The next thing I would recommend, if you have the option of it, if you have a bigger box store, say if you're going to like a Guitar Center or a Sam Ash or something like that, and they have a few of the same model, I would see how many they have if you can get them to bring a few of them out from the back, right? If there's 2 or 3 that you can choose from, because each guitar will be very different. Some may be a lot heavier than the others. One serial number different could be the greatest, most resonant, light, beautiful guitar, and the next one down the line could be like a boat anchor and be dead as a doornail. So there's all these different things that you really want to look for, and each guitar is its own thing. Just because it's a Fender doesn't mean it's going to be a great guitar. Just because it's in any company doesn't mean it's going to be specifically a great guitar. And the one next to it could be a great guitar, and the one next to it could be the greatest guitar. So if you have the opportunity to try a few of the model that you want to purchase, I highly recommend you do that. Here's a big thing. I really try not to buy a guitar sight unseen that I cannot return. So if you're buying from something like Sweetwater or a big store like that, you have the return policy, and that's totally cool because if you get the guitar and you don't love it, you can send it back. Sometimes if you buy something off of Reverb and the guitar, you get it and it is as described, but you get the guitar and it's just not a very good guitar, you're stuck with it. You know, certain brands, or you have a much higher chance of not getting a guitar that you don't like I've found PRSs to be very consistently good guitars. So if I'm looking at something like that, I'm going to feel a little more confident. But very often, you could be buying somebody else's dud of a guitar. Okay, so you've picked up your guitar. You found one that you think is pretty resonant, kind of cool. Everything kind of looks pretty good. The next thing I'll start to do is to pay real close attention to see if I can find any dead notes on the guitar. And this is not something I did when I first started playing the guitar. I didn't know about this. And what a dead note is, the guitar is made of wood, and sometimes there's resonant frequencies that just don't align up with the note on the guitar. Sometimes like the guitar just doesn't like an A note or a few notes on the neck. It's because you're dealing with organic material in the neck and the body, and just sometimes they match up great and sometimes they just don't. So that is at every level. So how do you look for dead spots? We'll plug into an amp and play each note. These are all really good. This is one of the reasons why I got this guitar. It didn't have any dead notes, but you might have a note that might sound like this. Like I can't do it, but the note will fade out really quickly. Or sometimes it can even sound like a banjo. You know, it just got bing, and the note just dies away. According to my friend Holger, you have to be very careful with dead notes on SGs and ES style guitars. Due to the build nature of the instrument, they are more prone to having some dead notes. There's not much you can do about them. If you have a guitar that's got a lot of dead notes, refretting it isn't really going to make a difference. It's a problem with the wood. There are devices that people like, you can put something heavier on the headstock, but that just does is it changes the position of the resonant frequency or the non-resonant frequency to some other note. So generally speaking, I try to play all the notes in a guitar. If I find a few are dead, I won't buy the guitar. And any of my friends, when I remember it was at Watchtower Guitars playing this, another guitar I got from them, I was doing that and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm playing every single note because it'll drive me crazy if I get a note and I'm playing up here and it goes, like if the note just goes womp and falls off. So I'm always looking for a guitar with as few or no dead notes. Every guitar is going to have some notes that ring out better than others. I think it's just kind of the case. I've not found a guitar where everything is 100% perfect, and it doesn't have to be. You'll know. You'll play a note and you feel like, is there something wrong with the fret, or did the note die out? What's going on? And very often that is just a bad dead note on the guitar, and I will put that guitar down. Another thing I'm very insistent upon, especially if I'm buying, any guitar, frankly, is I ask the repair guy, and I always end up buying guitars from stores that I know, or if I get the guitar at home sent to me from a store, I want to check the truss rod to see if there's enough motion in either direction, right? About at least a half a turn in either direction. So if the neck is perfectly straight, I'm going to loosen that truss rod at least a half a turn to see if I get a bow in the neck coming forward. I'm going to tighten it a bit more to see if I get the back bow. This is really, really important because I've played brand new guitars with a truss rod that was as tight as it could go or as loose as it could go. And then there's nothing you could do if the neck on your guitar starts to warp. It's not super common, but it is not uncommon, so it's a really good practice to check for the play in the truss rod either direction. You will not hurt the guitar. If you find you're really trying to wrench it, then don't buy that guitar. That means that truss rod's probably as tight as it can go, or it's going to be problematic in the future. So you want to be able to get a good turn to the left, at least a half a turn, and a good half a turn to the right. If you're at a store where you know the guy, talk to the guitar repair guy and ask him to do that. Any store that refuses to let you do that, I feel like I wouldn't want to buy that guitar. Another thing I look for right away, especially in Gibson-style guitars, is how firm the neck is, how much play, how much wobble the neck has in it. So I'm pushing fairly hard, not too hard. In every guitar, you're going to get some degree of pitch change, right? If I push the neck forward, it's going to go a little flat if I pull it back. So you want to be careful when you're doing that. I did have an SGU many, many years ago, a guitar with a very thin neck, and I had a Strat that had a very wobbly neck. So when I'd play a chord, or if I'd lean over, the guitar would go out of tune. The neck felt like it had next to no truss rod in it, and that made me crazy for a bunch of reasons. One, that instability in the neck on a gig is terrible. You're playing a chord, and you're strumming it, and then suddenly it goes out of tune. I was maddening with that guitar I owned. And also, it's not always the case, but sometimes guitars like that, the neck can be a pain. They really can be very sensitive to temperature changes. So on a gig, you might feel like, why is my guitar suddenly really flat? Because the neck got warm under the stage lights and it went out of tune. Every guitar is going to do that to a certain extent, but sometimes guitars with a bit of that flimsy neck problem will definitely do that, and I avoid that at all costs. Now, sometimes on a Fender, you're not going to get that same play in the neck because it's a maple neck as opposed to mahogany, so it's going to be stronger. I do the same test on a Fender. Hear my dog barking. On a Fender, check it out. I'm pushing that pretty hard. This neck is hard as a rock, and I like that. Some guys like that they can wobble the neck, but I can get some of that cool Bill Frisell vibrato out of it. But if I do this, the neck is not really moving that much, so to me, that's a good choice. When I buy a guitar, I hope to not want to make any changes to it. Now, over time, I've changed pickups and guitars because there's things I know I like or that I'm missing. But if I buy a new guitar, I'm going to live with it for a while, because the thing you want to understand is if you're buying a guitar and you go well, it'll probably sound a lot better with new pickups on it or a new bridge or new tuners.
No.
What I end up doing is I have to love the guitar the way it is, and I want to leave it and be really happy with it. And then over time, after I play it, play it for a little bit, and then see if you think, well, maybe I want to upgrade the pickups. I really love the guitar, but I think I might want something a little warmer sounding. My final bit of advice, and I do have some vintage instruments, is do not buy the guitar or any guitar as an investment. It's a tough one, right? Because the market is very volatile. It's been good for years, but it may not be in a number of years. The vintage guitars that I own because I thought they were spectacular instruments and I loved them. But I didn't buy them for the investment. And I think Joe Bonamassa has talked about that too. If you turn around and resell your guitar, you're not really going to make that much money. That could cost you a lot of money. And a lot of the guys who buy, sell, and trade these, they trade them and they'll throw in extra money. So the margins of profit on these guitars are not really that great, but you could fork out a lot of money for one. And then suddenly the market in the vintage guitar world can crash. So I'm happy with what I have. Certain things are way out of my price range. I got into some of them before the market went crazy, but I cannot say for any certainty that in 10 years the market will not totally bottom out, because maybe people won't be interested in old Stratocasters in 20 years. I don't know. So you buy the guitar because you love it. Another thought, man, that custom shop Strat or that Murphy Lab, that's a ripoff. They're not worth the money. That's what they cost. If you like them, and I think the Murphy Lab stuff is great and the custom shop stuff is great, if you like it and you find a good one, that's what the guitar costs. I'd rather have one really expensive guitar than 3 crappy guitars. That's, for me, any day of the week. And I did that throughout my career. I ended up selling 2 or 3 guitars to get one really good guitar. And I never looked back, and I never missed those guitars that were just okay. You just end up finding there's really great guitar that you love that becomes, hopefully, a lifelong friend. All right, so there you go. There's some tips on choosing a guitar through many years of experience and many years of poor choices. So things that I've learned. I hope you enjoyed this. If you liked the video, please hit like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.